My mother worked in the agency and wanted to get me off the railroad because she'd put up with my dad on the railroad for 40 years. And so I was working on the railroad, and she convinced her employer to interview me and hire me, and they did. I really didn't have any concept of the business as such. All it meant to me was that by knocking on doors and getting people to part with their money, I could make a decent living. And it was all in daylight, and I wasn't working night shifts or anything else, and I thought it was wonderful. A sense of community in that I certainly became aware of the outlying areas of the city, because that's where all the new building was taking place and where the action was. But in terms of talking about a sense of community, as I had gone to school and grown up in the community, I understood the dynamics. Well, it allowed me to meet and get to know people that I would never have otherwise known. I became involved in the Junior Chamber of Commerce. I became involved in other service type clubs, Rotary and so forth, which sort of broadened your perspective and let you meet people from different walks of life. Oh, it's absolutely, I think, essential. You've got to be involved in community affairs and understand what is going on, what the local politics are, who has influence and who doesn't, and the only way you can do that is by being involved. A situation that developed when I was the president was a commission that had been put together by the then Socrat government. It was called the Wooten Commission, and Judge Wooten came out with a report that wanted to see a transition to no-fault automobile insurance, and the legal profession and many of the insurers that we dealt with were absolutely opposed to it. I personally was opposed to it, and we had many meetings and sessions with both the Premier of the province and commissions that were put together to get public input. It was what I would describe as a very discouraging time, because major change was going on and you couldn't stop it or do anything about it. Just a greater knowledge of the depth of the business. I certainly learned and understood at that time that it is a financial machine. It's a money pot where money is going in and money is going out. And by investing, you take something off the top, and from an insurer's point of view, that's where the money is. From the broker's point of view, it was a question of selling as much as you possibly could to earn the commissions that you generated from those sales. Ooh, he's got to have the patience of Job and be able to have empathy for members that are in difficult situations, and also understand the dynamics of what's going on, which are way beyond any control that you might exert internationally. The financial giants are doing whatever they're going to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. Oh no, the people are the important thing. The people that you met and knew along the way, those memories will be with you forever. Their accomplishments or failures or whatever might occur are part and parcel of your life and your history, and that's what's important. Well, my fear is, and I have 5 sons and a daughter that are all very much involved in the insurance brokerage business, and my fear is technology, the automated technology, where you'll be able to pick up the phone and ask any question you want with regard to insurance and get a very precise and concise explanation from a robot. And it's going to wipe out the ability of young folks to get into our business, because it's largely going to be overtaken in the run-of-the-mill sort of day-to-day automobile insurance, homeowners insurance. That's going to be run by robots, and that scares the hell out of me. It's worse than the banks. I have no idea. I'm not involved in the day-to-day, thank God, involvement of an association. I'm not trying to cope with those things. I don't care anymore. Broker still has a role to play, whether it's with an individual client or a business, doesn't really matter, because when a problem arises, that phone rings and you better be prepared to step up and help out and give direction. That will always be there. The robot can't do. Well, they saw the opportunity. They saw that a good, aggressive young broker who wanted to put his mind to it and work, and I stress the work part of it, that within 3 or 4 years you could be making more than most lawyers or doctors and still have a great life and an enjoyable life. There is excellent opportunity for an aggressive young broker. Well, their 5 boys are all involved working for Hub International, and they all got into the business at one time or another through my former brokerage in Prince George, and then they branched out from there and went on to other things. They're regional managers, they're top salespeople, they're international managers, and they all do very, very well. My daughter decided to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom. She was a sales manager for an independent brokerage in Edmonton. But it's an exciting life for them. It's a good, absolutely wonderful income, and they all work hard and do well.
And how do you feel? Does it make you proud?
Yes. Yeah, I'm very happy that they chose to follow me into the business, because I influenced them, there's no question. They saw the lifestyle we had and the ability to get away when you wanted to, and that was attractive to them. The crisis moments when we were dealing particularly with the NDP government in British Columbia, when they first brought in compulsory government-run automobile insurance, and that was a massive change, pardon me, a massive change in that all of your revenue for the sale of automobile insurance was all going to come in 1 month. You had 11 months to retain staff and keep people around, and no revenue coming in from the automobile side of the business. So it was a major challenge to refocus and rejuggle so that you could make the dollars work. And it was a scary time. Well, it's critical because if, particularly for, and I'm saying this with all kindness, for brokers that are away from the major center of influence in Vancouver, their only opportunity to understand what is going on is by the communication they'll have through the Brokers Association, through local meetings, through visitations of various types. They don't have exposure out in the hinterlands, as it were, with what's going on in the major core where the major population is. They just don't know. And the association gives them that outlet. It's very important. One man in particular, Alan Davidson, who unfortunately died this year, was a gentleman that was always available and on call. If you had a major problem and you're dealing with any situation involving insurance companies, he virtually had a little scorecard, I think, that he kept, and he knew who the players were, and he knew what the right position should be, and when to show your teeth and when to stay quiet. He was an incredible influence.
Well, I had a good friend, and he owned a company, and it was real estate, insurance. They had a notary. They were a shipping agency, if anybody knows what that is, customs brokerage, and I had my family, and he ran into me one day and said, "Hey, Linda, you ever thinking of coming back to work at all?" And I said, "I've been thinking about it, Elmer." I said, "My daughter's 5 years old. The other 2 are in school. Yeah, give it a go." So I went to work at this place, didn't know a thing about insurance, right? And as it turned out, the lady that was running the insurance department, which was very small at the time, she left. And so Elmer said to me, he says, "Well, Linda, how about you take it over?" Which I did. And it was very interesting because none of the partners had any insurance experience, so it was up to me to learn. And as soon as I got into it, it was like I was meant to do this. I enjoy working with people, and it's such a people business. It's so much about relationships, and it was just like I'd found my niche. My husband and I ended up eventually buying that company and then buying a larger broker where I still am now at Alport Insurance. I think you have to have compassion. I think you have to be able to relate to people. You have to be able to put yourself in their shoes. I have sat at fires with clients, and all I could think to myself was like, oh my God, how would I feel if my house was burning down? They have to be there to work for their client, to do the best job they can. And I think that's the qualities. Like, you just have to be able to be out there, talking to your customers, understanding what their needs are. I'm sorry, I'm Italian, I talk with my hands. Understanding what their needs are and being able to help them with that. Just say one thing, sort of? Is that what you're, okay, okay, all right. Oh, I understand, okay, okay.
Compassion
Okay.
was your
Yes,
key
yes,
piece.
okay.
Yeah. And so what does it take to be a good broker?
To be a good broker, you need to have compassion and understanding of what your clients' needs are. And you have to be there for them, and you have to form a relationship with them. And I think that's the most important thing, is the relationship that you are able to form with your client. I think first and foremost, you have to listen. You have to listen to what your members are saying to you. You have to be out there, you have to be available, and you have to be committed. Because being a president is a huge commitment. And to take on the job without that commitment, you shouldn't be doing it. The most important thing to me about having been president is the people that I've met, without a doubt. Not only the people that I've met at the insurance company level, the brokers that I've met are fellow members, the brokers I've met across Canada, the experiences that I've had. It's hard to explain, but it's been a great journey. Well, the biggest issue that I had to deal with as president was the implementation of Policy Center. ICBC, after 40 years, put in a new Guidewire software system, and it was very challenging. So we worked alongside with ICBC. We were there to assist the brokers. So that was probably the most challenging thing that I had during my term as president. Without a doubt, my good friend, Kevin McIntyre. Kevin and I, when I joined the executive, he was on the executive, and he has spent his whole life working in insurance and helping in the industry. And he has been, he always knew everything that was going on, and he's been a great mentor to me. Because I think that it should be a good celebration, because we as brokers we've come a long way, just like when Jack was talking about technology, all these different facets, and we should celebrate. We should celebrate for all the work we've done, for the recognition that we've received. We should, and for IBABC, it is a strong organization, and we need an organization like that. We need one voice to speak on our behalf, and this is a time to celebrate that. I believe in brokers. I'm a firm believer that the broker is here to stay. I understand that technology is becoming the thing, people being able to do their insurance direct, all of these things. It's changing every day, and I think we need to embrace technology. We need to use it as a tool, but don't ever think that you can be replaced by technology. I firmly don't believe that. I think insurance brokers are here to stay. The world is changing, the industry is changing. You have to change with it. You cannot be complacent, but I still firmly believe in insurance brokers. Oh, well, it just made me think about how everyone renewed their auto plan for the end of February, and you were lined up at the counter, and all this money that kept going to the bank. And, I can remember when we first got our first sort of dummy computer, and when I first started, you had to phone into ICBC and get your DCID number, and it was just, and there was no, of course, there's no email. I remember when we got a fax machine, we thought this was going to change the world, right? If you sent a memo to an insurance company, you typed the memo and you kept a copy in the file, and the other copy went to the insurance company. So it's come such a long way. Yes. It's totally important. Like, that's what it is. Do you mean a community as IBABC being a community?
We'll ask that next.
Oh,
The
okay.
first community we're going to talk about is your local community.
Where I
for
live.
Alberta.
Okay.
And
Community is really important because, when you live, like myself, I live in a small center. It is really important to get involved, to contribute, to be part of it, to be an advocate. It is crucial that you are involved in your community. And that's what insurance brokers do. We're all involved in our community. We live where we sell our products. We know our customers, and that is what the importance is, and that is what the relationships are about. IBABC, as a community, it's a meeting place for brokers. It's somewhere for brokers to talk about the things that they're concerned about, that they're worried about. So when they're like when we have our conferences or whatever, we talk to them, and that's crucial because just like Jack said, myself being a small broker in a small community, I need that. I need to be able to know what's going on in the industry, and that's what IBABC provides to us. IBABC is a meeting place for brokers. It's someplace that they can talk to, like they can talk to the directors, they can talk to the people that are part of IBABC, they can express their concerns, there's someone that's going to listen to them, and it's a place for us as part of IBABC that we can,
situations that are in various levels.
And helps to better understand the problems and the situations at all different levels. And like I said, being myself a broker in a small community, I could go to the conference, I can get up to date, I can speak to other brokers. I know that if something comes up, I can get a hold of the IBABC office, I can phone Chuck, I can talk to him. There's always someone there to talk to and to assist you. I met Alan, the first time I met Alan, I believe, was at a vicar staff dinner probably about 3 years ago. And he happened to be sitting at our table with myself and my husband. And from the moment I met him, I knew that this was truly a special man. The way he talked, the way he told me about the industry, everything that he said, you could just see that this was a genuinely great man.
Yeah, it was very much different than it is today. I can tell you, I worked for the bank for 6 years and transferred me all around the province. And finally, we got to Vernon and decided that this is a place we'd like to live. I had the opportunity to go for a career in banking, but one of my customers said, I have an insurance and real estate and finance, and I don't not have enough time to look after them all. So how about you come and look after the insurance side and buy it out? So
in terms of what you saw, your first what were your expectations when you entered the insurance business?
It was totally new to me. It was very much like the banking business where you had to have a relationship with people, but basically I didn't have any idea or expectations.
And throughout that period, how would you summarize your career in it?
Well, I can't think of any career I could have picked that would compare it to the insurance business. It's just one of those that if you get a liking for insurance, then you not only get a liking, but you get a desire to sell it. Well, I always say that to be a good salesman, you have to know people, and you have to know how to deal and make them comfortable, and they get to trust you as an individual. And basically, that would be the basics of a good broker.
What age?
Could you start?
Well, good broker, you have to have a desire, you have to have a passion to look after people. And so to be a good broker, you have to have a relationship with them so you can understand their needs and know what to do when you're called upon to look after their insurance needs.
What year were you the president?
1984.
Were there, what sort of qualities do you need to be a good president?
I think you have to have a feeling.
Can you start with to be a good president?
Oh, okay.
What sort of
Sorry.
things do you need?
To be a good president, you have to have a knowledge of the needs of your fellow brokers, because you're there to represent them all, and so to know exactly what they need and want, and have to manage their brokerage. I think that's.
Were there any particular issues that you were dealing with during your presidency that stand out?
Yeah, we had quite a bit to do with ICBC. As you know, it's a big part of a broker's world. And so I was very involved with the takeover by Canadian Northern Shield, which was the general side. If you understand what the general side of the business is, it's other than auto plan. And we were kind of forced to take on Canadian Northern Shield, which bought out the general business of ICBC way back when, and when they got out of the business. And so I guess you don't know that.
Celebrate some of those successes.
Oh, definitely, and I think it's the brokers grew within what they had to deal with over the years, and they have made themselves more viable, I think, by the amount of work that they put into the agencies over the years, and the association, and so I think they made a viable spot for brokers.
Do you think that's because they became more relevant, or they were relevant to the times?
I think they adapted to the times. They weren't relative to the job of a broker hasn't changed over the years, ever since I got into the business. But we've had to adapt because of the changes that have taken place. And so you have to kind of go with the flow.
Great. Now, what do you think about the future? What do you think the future is?
I think it's very good.
Can we use the word future?
The future of the insurance broker is very relevant because, I think of people involved in technology, and sure, they can gain good knowledge from technology, but that's only if they want to, and only if they desire to gather that knowledge and apply it to their needs. Alan Davidson was a super dude. He is the epitome of brokers today, and not only today, he's been through the broker, been in the business as a broker for years, and he never changed. He always kept his expertise, and he always was a friend and a mentor to most of the brokers around today.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, the future, to me, anyway,
Hold on, start again.
the future, to me, is the role of the broker is not going to change over the years. You're going to have to go with the flow, as I said before, that you have to go ebb and flow and keep up with the times. But the role of the broker is always going to be there, because even though the people have the technology at their fingertips, it's only if they want to use it for what they need at the time. And so that the broker will always have a role to play in the fact that the clients have to be looked after by somebody who has the desire to look after them, and also has the knowledge to be able to make it happen.
Carry forward.
Well, everything we did was sort of a flow thing. There was nothing that kind of started and stopped. As an example, we negotiated with ICBC and, broke the $50 million mark, which was not a lot of money in those days. It was a lot of money in those days, not a lot of money today. And, but that was an ongoing process. The other really big thing that flowed through our system was the licensing process with the Insurance Council. Well, we start, you sort of go through the chairs. So you start off on the board, you come to be the vice president, or even other jobs. I think I was a treasurer for a while. So you go treasurer, you go vice president, president, past president. So as you can see, there's a group of 4 people at least that are really working together.
The reason was that Harry and he was very involved with the Insurance Council and also the association at one time, at that time. And we got very involved in what makes an insurance broker. And so you have, if you're dealing with the Insurance Council and you have to decide what's good for the broker, you have to set up some standards that a broker has to live by. And that's what we were involved with as a kind of a duet.
And of course, the Insurance Council's mandate, they really didn't care much about the broker. Well, they did, but their focus was on the public. They're going to protect the public through licensing or disciplinary actions or whatever were required on the broker, sort of thing.
Well, when you're working for the brokers and being in the presidency, you have to do something that makes sense to the broker, and you have to understand that they have a job to do, so they can't be totally involved in the inner workings of the association. And so what we were, I don't know who actually came up with the idea to set up some standards and some licensing criteria for the broker, but that's what we were involved in, to kind of take that ball and make it work.
So you've got a situation, to answer your question, you've got a situation where something comes up. And sometimes those issues are resolved in one meeting or two meetings or whatever, whoever they might be with, the Insurance Bureau or ICBC, the council or whatever. Most of them are not like that. Most of them are, here's the predicament or here's the problem that we have, how do we work through it? And these things just take time. And so you're both there through all this period of time. Some take 4, 5, 6 years. Some may have started before we did. They're still ongoing. I mean, dealing with auto insurance is an ongoing thing in Canada between brokers and the public and insurers, public and private, since day one. You spend 80% of your time on it because that's just the way.
Well, definitely the camaraderie is there. Like, I mean, the 4 people that Harry mentioned originally, that was Derek and Conrad and Harry and myself. We were kind of indicated as the 4 musketeers, and so you know, we were very dedicated to the desires and wants of the brokers, and you just can't do it all yourself. I mean, that's definitely why you have everybody else involved.
The other thing too is that everybody brings different perspectives. So what Conrad or Derek might see as a solution for this particular problem, we didn't necessarily see it that way. And so you work through it and say, oh yeah, well, this is the way we're going to do it because we've agreed on that sort of thing. We've taken all the input and said, okay, here's how this thing's going to work.
One other aspect of our conversations that we had was working with John Glavin, who was representing the insurance council from the company point of view. And of course, he's interested in the education of the broker. So in order to sell his product, you all have to come from the same mind.
The past presidents meeting?
Yeah.
Socialize.
Any other
Really,
work
you know,
function?
well, when you're no longer in the business, you sort of, you know, you still, it was your life, eh? So you still want to come to meetings like this and find out what's going on and hear from the people who are involved and doing the things that you did 30 years ago. That's, you know, sort of why you come. And then of course you can see all your chums that you haven't seen for a long time. And, you know, you've worked with a lot of these guys. I say there was a group of 4, but that was the immediate 4. There was always another 4 after that. There was another 4 before that. And all of a sudden you got 20 people that, you know, you've actually had some interaction with and done some work with and influenced each other as to how to do certain things. Well, I guess it's, you know, it's the history thing that, you know, when you're 20, it really doesn't matter. And when you become 50, 60, 70, 80, it becomes more and more important. And to have an organization that, you know, has sort of been doing the same thing for that period of time may not be a big deal in Europe, but it sure is in Canada.
So 100 years, a lot of things have happened. I guess
Absolutely.
You're celebrating the achievements and the...
Yep, achievements, failures, and so on and so forth. It's all there. Not a lot of failures, I might add.
Now, in terms of, we're looking at the past now, what do you guys have to say about in terms of how do we look to the future as brokers?
Well, you know, as the future of the broker is definitely what he can do working with technology, but he still, his function is to be trustworthy, and he's got to have a relationship with his clients, and without those 2 things, in the long run, I don't think insurance would survive without having somebody making it happen.
People buy insurance from people they know, like, and trust. And if you don't put yourself in that position, you're not going to be very successful as an insurance broker that's dealing with clients. So having said that, that's not going to change. How you deal with them is going to change. People are going to buy insurance online. That's been the case for many years. They're also going to come to their insurance broker when they've got something that's a little bit out of the ordinary or a little bit complex. So if you want to go and buy your tennis package online, so on and so forth, and suffer the consequences, well, that's certainly your prerogative. But if you want good advice and probably a better product and probably the same price, you're going to go and see an insurance broker. It's like anything. You go into a bank or your investment advisor or whatever. Why are you there? You can do all this stuff online. No, you want the advice from the guy. And that's why insurance brokers are going to continue to be a factor and be successful if they do things right.
And doing things right means that they have to keep up with the technology part of the business and be a part of it.
That assist.
Well,
Over here.
I think that people want to, once again, they want to deal with people they know, like, and trust. And if you know, like, and trust a female, you're going to do business with her. And the same is true of a male. So I don't think it really matters, where it comes from. Is there an influx? There's always been a lot of women in the insurance business. I think that what you're seeing more recently, though, is that they've risen to higher levels in the brokerages and also at the company level. They've achieved higher spots than they did. I mean, when I got in the business, there was very, very few women involved on a higher level sort of thing. That's not the case anymore. There's lots of very, very talented women out there, and they should be doing that.
And they're the different jobs that are available to the women today because of their expertise and because of their desire to do a good job. And we've got to recognize that feature so that in the long run, it could be a female-dominated business. But I think over the next period of time, you're going to find an equalization between male and female, and they deserve to be there.
Excellent, good. Did you know Alan Davidson?
Yep.
Do you have any comments about him?
I always described Alan Davidson as a gent. And when I started in the business, he was involved with a firm called Hugh and McKinnon. And as a young underwriter, I did some business with that organization, and I'd met Alan at that point. But I really, my only interaction with Alan was once a year right here, past Presidents meeting. And he always handled himself extremely well, was very well spoken, and respected by everybody else in that room.
Hey, who do we have here today?
I'm David Fitzpatrick from Megson Fitzpatrick Insurance in Victoria.
Excellent. David, how long have you been an insurance broker?
Well, I started in 1979 in Victoria when my partner Mike Megson and I got together and bought his father's agency, and have been at it ever since.
During that period of time, the insurance business has changed dramatically. Can you comment to that?
Oh, it's changed in a huge way. I mean, the amount of...
Can I stop for a second?
Sure.
This is where I'd like you to say, when I started in
Okay.
such and such, since then,
Yeah.
just give me a time cover.
Okay, when I first started in insurance, it seemed to be much more of a people-to-people business. For example, the relationships with underwriters were much more on a level of, give and take, what they could do for you, what you could do for them. There was much more sort of human interaction that way. Today, the underwriting piece has been taken over to a great extent by analytics, And it's just not quite the same human touch as it was when I first started. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but from a relationship perspective, it's much different than what it was when I first started. It's extremely important, and that hasn't changed. I will say, okay, I'll go back.
Like our
Okay.
relationship with the consumer is important because,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, our relationship with the consumer hasn't changed over the years, I don't think anyway. One thing that you might find a lot of people saying is that the consumer has become a little more demanding over the years, but I think that's true across all segments, retail and service. But the consumer really does look to the broker for advice and to form a relationship, and I don't think that's ever going to change.
Now, what year were you president?
I was president in 1990. Okay, just hang on, sorry. I was president of IBABC in 1990.
Were there any significant issues going on at that time? When I was president?
There were in 1990. There weren't any significant issues that we had to address. Jack Hamilton, who was the executive director of the association at the time, Jack and I worked well together, and we tried to really make it a for-profit organization. I know that's not maybe the right thing to say in a nonprofit, but we tried to run it on the basis that we would end up in a budget surplus at the end of the year. Well, when I worked with IBABC, there were some tremendous mentors and influences that I dealt with. Guys like Brent Atkinson, Harry Geddes, Dave Bakes, Derek Francis, Conrad Spears. I could really go on, and the talents that those guys had from a professional perspective were outstanding and something to look up to. But one thing I remember vividly is the talents that they had away from the insurance business. David Bakes was a fantastic musician, and Derek Francis was a great singer, and together they formed a group called the Baker and the Bloke, and we had tons of fun with them at conferences and conventions. Conrad Spears was a great man. He always liked having a good time. Brent Atkinson knew a financial statement like nobody else I've ever met. Just guys that you could really look up to and admire. Well, Victoria is a community to do business in. It's a blessing to be able to build a business in that city and the people in that city. They allowed us to start from a business that had Mike and myself and 2 employees to an office today where we have over 100 employees. It's just been a real treat to be able to live and work in that city and build the business that we built.
In terms of relationships now, you have a daughter working in the business?
Yeah, Erin, my eldest daughter, is in the business. She works for us as a commercial account executive, and she's on the IBABC board this year, so the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree.
And why is that special for you?
Well, I think it's always neat to see your kids. Well, I think any industry goes through change. It's inevitable. And so when I look back 100 years and say, what was the industry like and where's it going? I think we have to embrace change. You can't ignore it, and you can't put your head in the sand and hope that it remains the way it is forever. Because I think if you do, you're dead. You know, you're as an industry, you're just not going to be relevant as you go forward. So change is inevitable. We have to embrace it. We have to find ways to deal with it and find ways to make the industry thrive the way it has over the last 100 years. I think the future for insurance is incredibly bright. There's lots of people who are concerned about the digitization of the internet sales of personal lines insurance and that sort of thing. But I think as a career, it's going to continue to offer exceptional opportunities to young people. I know when I got in, a lot of my friends at university were going towards accounting or law and that sort of thing, and they've done well, but I tell you, people that got into the brokerage side of the business have done just as well, if not better. Well, as far as bringing people into the industry, and it's been an age-old problem, it's extremely difficult to get young people interested in the industry. It was when I first started, and I think it is today. Family members see the value of it more because they've lived it their entire lives with their parents being involved in the industry. So I think it's been easier to attract, your children to come into the industry, and I don't think any of them regret it once they get in. And then they have friends that they can talk to, so it's sort of a circle that goes around and around. But yeah, extremely proud to have family members in the business for sure.
Your daughter's a board member.
Yeah, that's great. She's a great kid. Well, I think the future is going to present some challenges to people coming into the business. But at the same time, I think it's going to create or present more opportunity for people coming in. You know, they talk about artificial intelligence and disruption of certain businesses and dislocation of jobs, which is going to occur into the future because of things like driverless cars, et cetera, et cetera. I still think the insurance industry will always be a relationship service business, which is going to require one-on-one contact with a lot of people for a lot of different segments and types of insurance. And you can only do that with people filling the seats. So I think there's huge opportunity for people in insurance going into the future.
Did you happen to know Alan Davidson?
Yes, a great man.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you, what was Alan Davidson like?
Alan Davidson was incredible. He would show up at the past president's dinner every year. I honestly am not sure what age Alan was, but he was ageless to me. He was just a prince of a guy, always on top of his game, funnier than hell. Just a prince of a guy, super guy.
Excellent. Changes that you've seen over that period of time.
Sure. So the changes in the industry, I guess my first thought on that is that a lot of it's the same because we're dealing with people. But certainly the way that we do it, the technology, when I first started, we were writing out memos on 3-part carbon paper. Just the computers weren't part of the picture. We had fax machine was something that was brand new. So the ability to communicate with our insurers and customers is definitely a big part of the change. Certainly the insurance companies that we deal with, like I think of the companies that were around when I started, that we haven't seen. We had Safeco Insurance, and we had Prudential Insurance, and a number of different ones that we don't see anymore. So the number of insurance companies and those insurance companies have changed. My thought on what the broker value is, I don't think has changed much from when I started. I always felt that we were there to be representing our customer. Always felt that that was where we came from, is to try to take care of being that representative for a customer, whether it's with the insurance company or in the case of a claim or what have you. But I always felt that the broker was there to represent their customer. I don't think that's changed much.
In terms of being the president, and what do you think was the most central value that you, or character in you, that made you a good president?
So I think that in all of my career, I always felt that I was part of a team. I always felt that we together collectively did things, tried to further whatever our initiatives were at the time. I think that as being president, you had to make sure that we stayed true to that idea, that we were there to try to make sure that we were improving initiatives, moving them along. But I think we did it as a team, so everybody was there. But I think as president, you're probably making sure that everybody is on board and making sure that they keep that in mind, that that's why we're here. So I think I can think every one of them. I can tell you that we've been very blessed with the people that we've had. When I first got on the board, we had our executive, and so going through them, we had Kevin McIntyre, Doug Geddes, and Ted Lewis, who collectively I thought were just amazing people. They complemented each other on their skills. Ted was the guy who was always delving in deeply on every topic, and if we got a report of 30 pages to review, Ted would be the one that would be front and center for those. Kevin and Doug, Kevin was a good spokesperson for it. Doug was always looking at the different angles that could be there. So those three, I think, were amazing. I also have to say something about Richard Pendrell. Richard and I are good friends, but we worked together on the board. We also would meet as friends every Friday pretty well. We would talk about what's going on, and he always had a lot of passion. There was issues that he wanted to make sure that we dealt with, and I think, you know, out of all of them, I think that, you know, he had his issues that he wanted to see that we dealt with and followed through, and so Richard would be along with those three, I think, some of the. So my thoughts on the industry going forward, you know, I'm still quite active working with a couple of offices. I've hired a number of young people recently, and, you know, what I tell them, I think that there's a good future. I wouldn't want to encourage them to come into a business where I saw that we were in the sunset years. I really feel like there's a great opportunity. I still think that there's going to be changes, and we all have to deal with that. But at the same time, being able to advocate for your client and being that, I think it becomes even more and more necessary for us to be able to provide that for customers going forward. And there's still going to be a number of customers who need that. So I'm pretty bullish on the future of the industry. When it comes to the association, again, I think that what we're doing is trying to, you know, represent our members, but also represent the public. So when it comes to dealing with the politicians, somebody needs to be there to be a voice for the consumer, and I think that's a big part of what our associations do. How did I end up being an insurance
How did it all
broker?
start?
Okay, so my story is that, you know, like most, probably we didn't choose to be an insurance broker when it started. When I grew up, I didn't know really what I wanted to do. My thought was I kind of like working with numbers. Computers were just sort of starting. So I talked to my aunt, who was a school teacher, and I said I was thinking about maybe getting into accounting. And she said that, well, with these new computers, you know, probably 10 years, you don't need accountants. They're going to take over all that. So it made sense at the time. So then I just trying to decide what else I wanted to do, and I still struggled with what I wanted to do, but what I didn't want to do was to drive for a living, and I didn't want to be in sales. So those are the two things that I kind of knew. Age 21, I was working as a driver salesman for a food outlet, and so I was ready for change. My dad worked in an office that they sold real estate and insurance. The insurance people were looking for somebody to learn the business. The timing was right for me, so I ended up moving up to Quesnel and started in insurance.
So it's really your dad's fault.
It is, definitely, yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, you know, it's a bit of a longer story, but my dad, you know, he had separated from my mom when I was younger, and as we grew older, I stayed with my mom, but as we grew older, he was always trying to get us to join him and you know, spend some time with him and what have you. So at that point when he was in Quesnel, I was living in Langley with my mother, and so he you know, convinced me to make the move to Quesnel. A few years later, he moved to Prince George, and he said, you know, Prince George, a little bit bigger city, you'll like it here, you know, and you should come up to Prince George. So I moved to Prince George. And a couple of years later, he moved to Quesnel, or sorry, not to Quesnel, but to Langley, about 3 blocks from where I started with my mom. And he said, Langley's a great place, you should move to Langley. Well, that's where I drew the line. I said, oh no, I'm going to stay where I am. But he always had that influence on me to kind of look at the world a little differently, or places differently.
You work with your father?
So my father was in the real estate part of the office that I was in, the real estate insurance. So we worked in the same office, but he did the real estate and I did insurance. So I never did get a chance to actually work with him in the business. On the other hand, my son, when he got old enough, when he got out of school, sort of like me, he didn't know what he wanted to do. So his mother said, you've got 3 months to figure out to do something, or you're going to have the insurance manual to learn insurance and get an insurance. So he ended up having to take the manual and learn it, and he was in the business for probably about 10 years, worked with us for about 5 or 6 of those years. So it was nice having him work with us. the word community in our business and my business is huge. I started my career in Quesnel. I went to Prince George. Then I was in Maple Ridge for a while, and now Port Moody. All of them somewhat smaller towns. And I've always felt I'm not a salesperson per se. It's relationships, and so the opportunity to make friends and acquaintances outside of the office and build that into your business has been huge for me. So being able to go to the grocery store and see people that are clients, have friends that become clients, that's the best part of the business for me, is being able to, run into people everywhere that you go so the insurance community, I've been, it'll be 42 years in January, so, and all of it is a broker. And as much as I can say that, the clients are friends and so on, I can say just as much or more about the people that I've met in the industry. I've had the good fortune of being involved in associations, both the provincial association, the national association, so I got to meet people across the country. Earlier I talked about how I felt that there's a real good future for brokers, and being able to go across the country and meet people from every province, been able to be in every province, and see they may look at differently, but they all have the same thought about how they want to deal with the business, and how they treat their clients, how they want to work for their clients. And so it's that caring, I think, that insurance brokers have, that's probably different than maybe other types of professions may have. We deal with clients when they have some of the worst things that can happen to them, and we're trying to work with them and make them better and make them feel better. And just the community that's there to be able to also share the good times with and have the fun with is also a big part of it. So how BC was reflected across Canada, I think that the rest of the country always thought BC was probably a little bit different in the way that they dealt with things on a national basis. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. I think that BC's always been considered a very progressive province, but at the same time, they had initiatives that they wanted to see happen, and sometimes on a national level they don't happen as quickly as we'd all like them to be. And so BC certainly made the point of trying to push that going forward. So again, I think that the rest of the country appreciated that BC wanted to be progressive and see things happen, and then found it a little frustrating at times because they had to deal with the frustration BC had about us not getting things done as quickly as they'd like them to be done.
Were there any skills or qualities or characteristics that you took from the NASH skills and bring them back?
So from on the experience that I had on the National Association, I think what I brought back from that is knowing that although across the country we may do things a little bit differently, I think that we all have that same goal of trying to take care of our customers. So that just reinforced that for me, is that we ultimately our goal is to try to represent our customers and work with companies, and so that's right across the country. And I think that's the biggest thing that I can say that I felt from my experience that I could bring back to BC and know that we're not different.
Excellent. In terms of, let's just ask you a question. Did you know Alan Davidson?
I did know Alan.
Do you have any comment about him? We're doing a little special
Sure.
on his.
So, my knowledge of Alan was more as being involved as a past president. So we have, annual get-togethers for past presidents. I did actually have some experience with Alan at going to some funerals, actually. But he, I guess he was the statesman as far as I was concerned of our group. I mean, wasn't just the fact that he was older than the rest of us, but he did the way he handled himself, the way that he still had a real interest
have here?
Michael Megson from Megson Fitzpatrick in Victoria.
Excellent. Now, you were asking a question about the startup of your company. Let's go back that ways away. When did you start in the business?
I started in the business in 1973, believe it or not, so some time ago, about 44 years ago.
Now, when you started this up, was this just, what promoted you to start this? What is the story about the startup?
Well, I got involved because at the time my father had a State Farm insurance agency which left the province of British Columbia because of the advent actually of ICBC. And so I got involved because I needed to learn the ICBC business so my father could learn the property and casualty business and we could continue on. So I got involved really out of necessity, I suppose, and stayed involved. Went back to university but stayed involved with the company while I was going to university. And then upon graduation at university, I decided to give the business a try, and here I am 44 years later.
Now, when you started the business, what was the business like when you started?
Well, I mean, everything was new to me, so it was quite an experience. But it was the beginning of ICBC, so the industry in this province had changed in terms of how auto plan or how auto insurance was done. So, you know, I mean, it's essentially, you know, that's what I've known in this industry is you know, the ICBC business, and but our firm has grown, you know, a great deal where ICBC is not a large part of it any longer. But that having been said, it's still a people business. It's always been a people business, and I think it always will be because of the complexity of the product.
And through those years, from the beginning till now, you've seen a lot of changes. How have you adapted or felt to those changes?
Well, I think like any business, in order to survive for 50 years, which our company will have been around this year, 50 years, you have to adapt and adjust to the changes. I mean, the business has seen tremendous amount of technological change, IT, and consolidation in the industry, where there's far fewer brokers, far fewer larger brokers, and far fewer insurers as well. So, you know, and I think the level of sophistication of the public's also changed. And with it, you know, we've had to adapt to all of that. So it's been fun, and it's been a challenge.
200 years.
Absolutely. I think service is what, you know, differentiates you from one brokerage to another in many cases. And yeah, I mean, service still is the touch phrase for most brokers, providing service on a personal level. I think you'd have to say the common value is people, and it's an industry where, you know, it's very one-on-one. There's complex products to explain from a broker to your customer, to your client, and I think that the personal relationship that you have with whom you're dealing with is really the essential ingredient of a successful brokerage.
Excellent. I'm going to ask.
I think in the last 100 years, the common denominator has been service and the interaction of people. So I would suggest that people is the common denominator, and service that a broker provides, and the advocacy a broker provides, and the explanation of a complexity of the products is really what our industry is about, and has been that since the beginning of insurance, to be honest, and certainly over the last 100 years that IBABC's been around. Well, again, change is changing in every industry is the future of any business, and I think that we're going to continue to see consolidation in our industry. I think without question we're going to see more of a change in how insurance is purchased, perhaps more of a view of some products being commoditized and being online. I still think obviously the people element will always be there because of the complexity of the product, but some products will be probably delivered on an online basis more than they are today. And I think, though, beyond that, though, I think the role of the broker will still be, again, explaining products and complexity of products to people in the next 100 years. I think that as change happens with cyber and terrorism and other things, we as an industry have to learn how to deal with these new changes in society, and so it gives us, in effect, an opportunity to make ourselves relevant, and I think that will change. Well, I'm from Victoria, and I've lived in that city since I was, I guess, about 15 years old. I was educated there and went to university there, as did my partner, David Fitzpatrick. And so we have been an integral part of that community, and our clients are obviously from that community, and I think that we've established a name and a reputation as being a professional but community-based organization, and I think that's been a real strength of our brokerage. And I know many other brokerages in the province are very much in the same mold as that, and I think that's one of the, as I say, the strengths of the insurance brokerage business, is that we are a real integral part of the community because we live there, work there, our families are there, and our customers, of course, are from that community. Well, I think IBABC is a great community, and I've been really privileged to have been part of, having been a past president, or having been a president, now a past president, and being involved in the board for many years. I've met so many, tremendous people that I've had the pleasure to work with and the opportunity to work with, and I've learned a great deal from them. And it was not something I wouldn't have given up in my professional career at all, is the involvement I've had with IBABC. And it, in and of itself, is a community. And whilst we're competitors, we're also very much friends at the end of the day. And it's a great organization. Well, I think listening to other people, being consensus-driven, I think the ability to listen, I guess, is a huge part of any kind of leadership role, and I think to then be able to take the information you hear from others and to disseminate it in a way that works, it makes sense, and it ends up having a workable plan. So I think, as I said, listening is a huge part of it, and turning all those thoughts into action is always.
You go and you leave, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, in order to get to the top or be the president of IBABC, you have go through the chairs, and you've spent time usually on the board prior to that, so you have a feel for what to do, and you're supported. It isn't just all about you. You're supported by all the other members of the team who are other brokers who have been in that role before you and are sitting on the board with you. So it is. It is a team. It's a team effort, absolutely, and you're trained for it, if you will, as you move up through the chairs.
Or any comments about it?
Well, I would simply put Alan Davidson as a gentleman and a scholar. He was a real statesman. I didn't have the pleasure of working with him because he was a little bit before my time, but I spent time with him at our past presidents' dinners and other times at the convention, and got to know him through that. And he's he's a tremendous personality, a man of great integrity, and I had tremendous respect for Alan. And as I said, he was a gentleman and a scholar, and defined that term absolutely.
I'm done.
Sure.
Your name and where you're from? And you were looking at me the whole time.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Clay Germain, and I'm with a company called AC&D Insurance in Coquitlam. I'm part of the Insure BC group. I'm partners with Jack Meyer.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
How long have you been in the business?
Started in the business in '96, late '96, with a company called Atkinson and Terry Insurance Brokers. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a quick question about it. When you started, I want to talk about the start of when you were in the business.
Yeah.
What it was like and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when I asked you the question, like when you started in the business, and what was it like, and what kind of thoughts were you going through? How did you look at the business at that time?
Yeah.
So how did you feel about when you started?
Well, when I started, of course, I'm just learning, getting used to things. I was actually, to be perfectly honest, I was kind of unsure in the beginning whether or not I wanted to make a career out of it, actually. It wasn't until about, I'm going to say 6 months in before I really took a liking to it. I kind of looked up to the people I was working with that were more advanced than me, and yeah, it was definitely different times back then, though. I remember, to make a change to a policy, you'd use your archaic management system. You'd print off a memo and you'd throw it in a tray to be sent off by courier to the insurance company. I thought that was kind of, looking back, I mean, that's hilarious now. I mean, obviously you'd send an email nowadays. Well, it was obviously all new to me at the time, and it took me really about 6 months to really get a liking for the business. I really started at that point to get to know the people I was working with a little bit better, and I looked up to them, and I kind of wanted to be like them down the road. So I watched what they were doing, tried to learn from them. I remember it was really funny. I mean, looking back on it now, we used to use our old management system, and if we had to make a change to a policy, we'd print off a memo and then walk over and throw it in the mail room into this courier tray. And every day that courier tray would just, the courier mail would go to the insurance company to get that change made. And so, it took about a month and a half to get things done back then. Quite a bit different than today, that's for sure. Well, I guess I liked dealing with the same customers each year. You get to know them on more of a personal level. They trust you more. You understand their needs more. I kind of liked that relationship building. I also liked just the different areas of the business you can get into. So a typical career path would be, learning auto insurance, and then personal insurance, home, tenant, condo, that sort of thing, and then commercial insurance. And as you move through those chairs or learn those different steps of the business, it just it's more rewarding, I guess, would be the word. What I like about the business, for the most part, would be getting to know my customers better. They gain trust in me, and then I get to know them better on their needs. And then learning the different areas of the business. A typical career path would be learning auto insurance, and then home insurance, and then business or commercial insurance. And it's what's the word? I know this is going to screw things up, but what's the word? It's rewarding, knowing that there's different levels you can get to in the business. Different depth of knowledge. Sorry, I still keep looking over there. Yeah. Okay.
So, what do you think are the character values that you have that make you a good insurance broker?
Well, I think the biggest character value for sure would be that I care. I truly care, and I love the business. So, I really want to see my customers have good pricing, but the best products. And I know that sounds cliche and everything, but I truly do care. I'm really passionate about the business.
Now, you're in Coquitlam, without using the word Coquitlam, but
Yeah.
how does your community involvement? Do you get involved? Do you volunteer? What do you do?
Well, honestly, I probably don't do enough. I'm part of a networking group, but that doesn't really benefit the community. I don't know if I could really give a good answer there.
But do you know a lot of people there? Do you
Sure.
know your customers well?
I know my customers well, yeah. I support them. If there's an opportunity to donate to a cause, or if there's an event taking place and a customer asks me to sponsor something, I'm happy to do that all the time. Absolutely, yeah.
And this is important in your business?
Yeah, they're good customers. They've been good to me over the years. Of course, I want to give back. I don't know that this part of it might not work.
Really good.
Okay.
No, you were
Okay.
rolling.
Okay.
Don't be self-conscious, because
Okay.
that was a good answer.
Okay.
So why again?
So
Why do you try to help out?
well, if they're long-term customers, without coming out and saying it to them, they've obviously been good to me over the years. So of course I want to give back. Of course I would. Yeah.
Important to value what's gone on in the past and carry it forward?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think you don't want to look back too long. I think it's probably more important to look forward than back. But there's a lot going on in the business right now, for sure. A lot of what's happening is technology related, and to me, it's kind of reminiscent of the .com era around the year 2000. And I think over time, this stuff will work itself out. I think there's a place in the world for technology and brokers advancing how they do business, and modernizing how they do business. It's hard to see exactly how that will play out at this point, but I definitely can see technology enhancing the relationship a broker has with a customer, for sure.
But in spite of all that technology, there's still the person.
Absolutely. You can't replace the person. You just can't. A computer or technology cannot replace emotion. And you need emotion sometimes. That's what gets things done.
Okay. How are we going to move forward?
I see brokers becoming more advanced. I see them becoming more modern. I could see a traditional retail brokerage becoming more interactive with the customer. Maybe it's got maybe they serve coffee as well. Maybe they sell products as well within the office. I think brokers will need to provide reasons for a customer to visit them physically in their location. But the business will modernize, the broker will become stronger. That's how I see the future, for sure.
So it's not just the technology, technology isn't going to eliminate the job, is it?
No way. Technology will enhance the job. It's going to, like I say, it's going to improve interaction with your customer. You can use technology to make it more convenient for a customer, but that doesn't mean it's replacing you. It's just enhancing the relationship. Thought.
Or many thoughts?
Many thoughts. I do have many thoughts, for sure. I mean, first of all, I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. It's not supposed to be a learning position, but I did learn a lot, actually. It was great to get to meet my counterparts all throughout the country. I learned a lot about the different provinces and the similarities that they have with us. Made a lot of great contacts within the business. I believe I contributed a lot too. I mean, it's a team effort, but I believe I was a big part of that. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think we all listen to each other. We process what we're hearing, and sometimes if you have an idea and you explain it, it might not get implemented or even thought much of at the time, but down the road it will, I believe. So by just general collaboration at various meetings, thoughts do come out in the end at some point. Did it sound like
okay. That's fine,
okay?
that's fine. But the interesting thing was that I keep hearing from everybody that it was, from a learning experience, it was like working in a team through a series of years. You weren't just president, were you?
No, absolutely not. No, it was in my case. Things have changed a little bit now, but in my case, it was a 4-year process. So you start out as second VP, first VP, and you go through the chairs that way. And yeah, each step of the way, you're learning a little bit more. My busiest year actually was as first VP. That's when I did the most travel across the country. That's when in our province you also sit on the board of the National Association, IBAC. But yeah, each step of the way you're learning from your predecessor, basically.
Essence of making a good president. What do they have to do?
Well, first of all, they have to listen, I think is the most important thing. Listening is key. I think it's good to absorb everything that you're hearing before you rush to judgment. It's good to involve everybody, of course. A good president will make sure everyone's voice is heard. And then, you got to put the good of the association, the good of the members, the good of your fellow brokers ahead of your own, for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well spoken. Did you know Alan Davidson?
I did. Yeah, he was a great guy.
Can you comment about his character?
Well, I only knew him for a few short years. I think I met him for the first time 3 years ago, in 2014, I believe. Great guy. I mean, like I say, I didn't know him that well on a personal level. It was more business related. It would have been great that he could be here today, for sure. It was very sad to hear of what happened, but I was good on him. Good for him for, I don't know what year he was president. I'm going to say it was probably in the 40s, I'm guessing. I'm not sure. It was that close? I'm not sure. For him to still want to keep coming to our annual meetings that we hold, that says a lot about him. And yeah, he's definitely missed, for sure.
Question is very easy. Now you can take your time on it. We've got lots of tape. Your name and where you're from?
Andrew Tablotny from Richmond, BC. Well, should I say BC? Yeah. Andrew Tablotny from Richmond.
Company name doesn't matter, it's just for our site.
Oh, Ligure Pelling Insurance.
Great. When did you actually start in the business?
I started in
You're not there.
okay. I started in around February of 1979. My cousin owned 2 insurance brokerages, and my dad, I was specializing in drinking and debauchery at university, so he suggested that I should maybe go work for my cousin, that it be a potential career move.
And so your cousin had what did you think about this, about stepping into this new industry?
Well, being 19 at the time, I was, again, I was more interested in girls and having a good time. But it was a learning experience for both of us. So, the adage "you can't work for relatives" was certainly applicable. So he thought I was a lazy sloth, and I thought he was an unreasonable boss. So that only lasted about a year and a half, and then I went out and worked for Gordon Chambers as a producer.
What elements captured your imagination and kept you in the business so long?
Being involved with people. Every day is different. Even now, when I talk to my staff, I say, that's what I love about the business, because every day there's something new happens. Sometimes there's a crisis, sometimes there's a good event, sometimes, it's just a new customer to deal with.
Okay. You can slow down just
Okay.
Well, I'll ask
Let me
you
do it
again.
again.
So what attracted you to that? Just a little bit more thoughtful, a little slower.
Okay. Well, what I like about the business, and I don't know if I knew it back then, was that I really enjoyed people and working with people, solving problems. I tell my staff every day, let's do that again. Sorry, what's the question again? Okay.
Yeah, what was it?
What brings you to the business?
What brings you into the business? What was special? What kept you?
What I love about the business.
What do you love about the business?
What I love about the business is being involved with people and helping people. The opportunity to work with people, and every day is different. Whether it's a new claim, a new customer, a problem to solve, whether it be with staff or customers, every day is a new challenge, and that's what makes it unique and interesting.
So over this period of time that you've been in there, you've seen a lot of changes. Let's just talk about some of the changes that you've seen the industry go through.
Well, I always jokingly say I remember when the first fax machine was installed in Gordon's office, and I thought that was the be all and end all to the world. Was now we could fax binders to lawyers instead of having to courier them down 3 days before. So and then when the computer came on, that was the next revolutionary in the industry.
Even though the technology was changing and things were happening, there were some values that just don't change for a broker ever since the beginning when 100 years ago. What are those values that don't seem to change?
Caring about people, caring about your customers, caring about your community.
Can I try that again? That's a beautiful line, but I'd like to say, it doesn't change over 100 years.
Okay.
It's still about,
Okay.
let's try it that way.
Doesn't change over time. Sorry. Doesn't change over 100 years. It's about caring about your customers, caring about your staff, caring about your community.
Good. Now, you became president in what year?
2012.
Why did you become president?
I'm always been one to, never one to be sitting in the background watching others. I've always been a doer. And I love challenges. I'm always want to be in the middle of the thick of things and see things happen.
Now, when you first started with them, what did you learn from it? What characteristics did you take away from it, being a president?
Well, I was always very opinionated, and I had to learn how to tune down my thoughts and be willing to listen to other people's opinions and allow them to express them and take into consideration what their thoughts were, as opposed to always thinking that I knew the answers and working with people on a greater degree.
Just remember to slow down. You're going quite fast.
Okay.
It's okay.
Can we do it again?
No. Yeah, sure. But just slow it
Slow
down.
down. Yeah, that's my ADHD.
Yeah, that's okay. Just slow it down just a bit.
Okay.
So what did you learn from being a president?
Well, I learned that you have to work with other people. I was always one to try and accomplish things, and always thought that I had the way to do things. And I think it was part of the reason that the executive was attracted to me, was that I was a doer and was a hard worker. But I learned that you have to take into consideration everybody's opinion on the board, and then ultimately you make decisions. But at least you have to allow people to express what their thoughts are.
Now, there's a lot of you encounter these presidents every year. There seems to be a sense of camaraderie. Are you learning from other people? Are you working together as a team? Let's talk about the relationships you have with other presidents.
Well, the presidents of my time around when start again.
Just start when you're ready.
So the presidents I interact with the most are the ones that were either a few years before me or a few years after. In fact, a group of us, we've actually formed a networking group with 3 presidents on the group and some past board members. So because we know each other and we trust each other and we know that we're consummate professionals.
So once again, nice and slow is what characteristics make a good president, sort of from your own perspective?
A good president is somebody that truly cares about other brokers. He's someone that listens and is striving to achieve for the betterment of the Brokers Association.
Just that last part, he or she.
Yeah. You have to use he or she.
Sorry?
We're going to ask that question again. If you have to use he or she, you can't just say he strives.
Oh, okay, okay.
So what makes a good president?
So what did I say?
Listening to each other, working together, sharing opinions.
No, that was,
Yeah, learning from each other, sharing. That's what
Okay.
it's about the relationship and everything. So
Okay.
what do you think are the core values that make this relationship with other presidents important?
well, I think it's respect for the other person, her. I think it's the respect we hold for each other, whether it be, okay, I'm trying to work the he and she in there, so I don't need to do that. I've got person, so I can just say person. So I think it's the respect we hold for the other person. We know that they're,
Don't get hung on the he and she.
yeah,
Let's
No, I know.
take
Yeah,
some
okay.
time. I
Or
think-
good, you don't have to say it, you say it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important. You know, let's try it one other way. I answer this by saying I believe,
Okay.
okay? And it's important to blah, 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 okay? So what are the 3 values that you think are important that make the president good and helps them work with other people in the relationships, which is,
I believe good presidents are people that are committed to the association. They have the good of all brokers in their heart, and they strive to work with everybody, whether they agree with them or not. These are the sorts of things that make a good president. Is somebody that's prepared to listen and work on behalf of all brokers.
in hindsight, did you learn anything from being president?
Yes, I learned to listen and to work with other people. You know, that I'm not, that when you're excuse me. Say it again.
What did you learn?
Well, when you run your own operation, you tend to think you know all the answers and have all the solutions, because you're the one that has to make the decisions. By working on the board, you learn how to work with other people, how to get them to help you solve problems and and provide the solutions that need to be done to help the association.
Okay. Let's talk about, in the past, 100 years, a lot of things have happened. Is it important to look back at the past and be satisfied that, you know, you guys have gone a long way, haven't you?
The Brokers Association in BC, and for that matter across Canada, has done a great job of serving the public, meeting their needs, you know, helping drive policy with government, and keeping the banks out. You know, that because the banks want to own the world, and you know, as brokers, we know what's best for our customers, not a teller at the local bank branch.
Excellent. What about, now let's look forward to the future. What do you think about the future? What does the future hold, and how do we look forward to it?
Well, during my presidency, I was part of my platform was technology. I recognized it at that time, and that was my mantra at the time, was that brokers need to embrace technology, and it's something that's going to be driving our business. If we don't embrace it, we'll be left behind, and you know, we're seeing that on varying scales. We have to be well aware of what's going to happen in terms of changes in the industry, and if we are, and we develop the systems and develop the technology, we will still be a very valuable piece of the puzzle in the industry.
Fabulous. Did you know Alan Davis more?
I knew Alan just from once I got on the Past Presidents Club. I met him there.
What did you think about the character of him now he's gone?
Well, he was a genuine person. You could, a caring person, and he'd be sadly missed.
Did you have anybody in your relationship with IBABC that you really just said, wow, that's an amazing person?
There's been, sorry. It was an interesting process for me because being a one brokerage office, you kind of question your own abilities and, do I really deserve to be doing this job? And, what am I really bringing to the table? So when you see some of the powerful people that, from large brokerages that are running this association, you sort of say, well, what am I really bringing to the table? And one person that really stood out for me was Kevin McIntyre because, he did 2 terms as president. He was very thoughtful, very, I learned from him in terms of how to deal with people and work on being diplomatic. I guess that's the word. He's a consummate diplomat.
Great. Okay.
Awesome.
Done. Excellent. Thank you.
Send,
Some good sound bites?
Kevin will send the $5.
We're rolling. What about community involvement? Is it an important factor, and why is it so for a broker?
Well, I think brokers in general are people that care about people, and so community involvement is their way to demonstrate that. It's been a part of my being, I guess, from the time I bought my brokerage. Both my wife and myself have been very active in the communities in varying degrees. We've been supporting Rotary for the last 15 years. I've coached I don't know how many teams. I look back and, I even today I get guys walking up to me and, I can't recognize them because when I was coaching them, they were only 10 years old and they say, hey, coach, how you doing? And it really makes me feel good to know that I was helping young men be better.
Wow. Glad we did that.
A lot of practicing more.
So, we'll let the man back in. We can start off with the first one, which is who do we have on camera and where do you live?
Sure, I'm Jeremy Lebsack.
Hold on. Try that again.
I'm Jeremy Lebsack. I live in Parksville and Waypoint Insurance. I'm the current IBABC president.
Excellent. That's my question. When were you president?
I've been president for a whole barely 6 months.
Okay. So, when did you start in this business?
Well, I started in the business about 20 years ago. It was a, do you want the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it was about 20 years ago. I was looking for a change in career, one that would allow me to be of value to my community, be seen in a profession that was valuable to all members of the community, and one where I could constantly grow and progress, and where opportunity was unending. That's what I found in this industry.
And so, what was the incident that happened for you to come across this revelation?
Oh, no incident. I knew that what I was doing wasn't going to fulfill me long term, and I knew that this industry, being one of change and one of forward movement, would always provide opportunity for me that would satisfy my need for constant growth and change.
Excellent. What about now? During that period of time, there was a lot of changes. How do you reflect upon the changes that went through?
Yeah, there's been a number of changes. I would say in my time, the bulk of the changes would be primarily technology. We're seeing modernization of systems and processes, and I think that one through a little bit further. I haven't been in the business long enough to see as much change as some of these other guys.
Oh, that's okay. 20 years, you've still seen a lot.
Okay, so I would say, a few areas of change that I've really noticed. One is the technology change. Systems are changing and processes are changing, but also how the industry is attracting the consumer. There is a race for the consumer these days that is faster paced than it's ever been, and we're really seeing innovative ways of attracting the consumer and transacting with them and integrating with the way that they want to do business. So those would be the largest changes I've seen.
Are there some elements that have, from the first of time till now, that really haven't changed about being a broker?
You know, the foundational relationship of being a broker hasn't changed. The relationship with the client is still a needs-based and a solution-based relationship. How we deliver that is what's changed, but the need is still the same as it ever has been, and the value in the relationship between the consumer and the customer and the broker is consistent from the beginning. Let me say that again.
On a personal level, what is there within the relationship with the customer that you like the most, or in that relationship?
Yeah, I would say it's fulfilling a need. The customer wants to live their life, and they want to live free without worry, and that's the job of the broker, is to free them to see their possibilities and go after them and not worry about the concerns that might be arising out of them. That's the job of the broker, is to remove the roadblocks.
Good answer.
I should say that again. I stumbled in there.
Well, why don't you just give it another go?
Okay.
Those are great parts.
Can you ask me again?
Well,
We're just blabbering on this whole time.
No, it's really good. I talked to you about
What is it about the customer?
What are the things, the qualities of being, what is that relationship with the consumer?
Right.
That's important to you. How is that relationship?
Right. What I enjoy most about the relationship with the customer is the ability for you to free them up to do the things that they want to do in their life. They have aspirations to travel, to buy houses, to start businesses, and the job of the broker is to facilitate that and let them see possibilities that they never would have before without the involvement with their broker.
And so, in a lot of ways, you're providing security, help, confidence, so that they can live their lives?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I'm starting to sweat a little bit. Yeah. So what I like about being a broker is that we give the customer the confidence and the security to be able to go after and do the things that they want to do in their life.
Perfect.
It's getting toasty in here.
We'll just stop a second.
More looking ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Sure.
And talk to him.
Yeah.
No, that's good, that's good. And so, in terms of
Yeah.
the change of how we attract customers and
Yeah.
how we bring them.
Sure. Yeah. The consumer is changing. They want to communicate differently. They want more freedom in their choices in how they communicate and when they communicate. They really want the options, and that's where brokers have the opportunity to start that over. The consumer really wants flexibility in how they communicate and how they do business today and in the future. They want flexibility in method of communication, the time of day that they want to do it, and that's where brokers can really advance and hold on to the foundation of being the relationship broker, but also the future needs of the customer, which is communicating with them differently, whether it's live chat or Facebook or new technology we haven't even seen yet. The consumer is really expecting that we will modernize with them as their needs change.
Excellent.
A little bit better.
No, that's way better. That's way better. In terms of your relationship, you're embarking on a new relationship within the organization. How do you expect the relationship with your fellow brokers going to be? How is that relationship going to work within the board and all that? How would you expect it to work? What are you hoping how it will work?
How it'll work, or what I'll gain from it, or yeah.
What you'll gain, but also like it's relationship sharing and shared experiences and taking that forward and working together as a team. Basically, is the answer, right? So,
Yeah. Sorry, just ask me the question.
How do you expect to just become the president now,
Right.
and you expect the relationships with the other past presidents and people
there you
on the
go.
board?
Sure.
Tell me how you expect that relationship to be and develop.
Right. I look forward to that relationship changing. I've been a participant in the past as being a board member, but by being on the executive and now being president, what I'm really enjoying is learning from past presidents and current executive members on what the... No, I've got to think that through a little bit better.
So the question I'm really asking is basically you're starting a new relationship with them. How is it going to change? And how do you expect that relationship to be? How are you going to handle it, and what's that relationship going to be like?
Yeah.
I think what I'm looking for is about gaining experience from them, learning from them, taking things forward, working in a very cooperative manner. I'm really trying to get your opinion of some of the leadership traits that you're
Right.
going to bring into that relationship.
Great, okay. Well, in the role as president, I'm looking forward to working with past presidents and current members so that I can learn from their past experiences, victories that they've had, battles that they've fought, so that I can take those foundational pieces and drive them forward as strategies come together for the needs of the future.
What do you think are good characteristics of a good president? What are two?
Yeah. I think a good president is one who can manage their own personal opinions about things, but still be open and willing to understand the needs of all members when it comes to the association, and then finding a way to balance that out so that the right decisions are made in the best interest for everybody.
How do you think you will approach challenges?
Head on. Challenges are coming regularly, and they will come faster than they ever have before. We have to have our eyes wide open and be prepared. Hang on. It's off to a decent start there.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
So how would you face the challenge?
Yeah, the challenges are coming fast, and they're going to continue to come faster than they ever have. And the good leader will take the foundational victories and learnings from the past and look at what the needs are of the future and apply those two together.
That's all we can end up together.
Yeah, that's actually,
Yeah,
that's great.
together. Yeah, no, it's great.
You can
I
use
guess-
that?
Yeah,
I-
absolutely.
I guess in
Gosh.
terms of,
The edit floor is going to be covered.
well, no, you're doing really super well.
No idea what I'm saying.
Was there any, is there any sort of story that you can share with us that kind of shows compassion that you've shown or been involved in, or something exceptional that has occurred within your broker life that just kind of said to yourself, yeah, that's been good.
Well, I thought about this story. I'll try and tell it, and I'll see if it works or not. But
Make it short.
it all started when I was 5 years old. No, early on in my career, I was a
Stop and start
sure.
calmly.
Okay.
It was kind of a running start.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, early on in my career, I was a customer service representative working ICBC all day long, and it was a busy office. And we often dealt with complicated transactions. The ones that were sometimes... I looked away. I'll start again. Early on in my career, I was an auto plan service agent, and a lot of the transactions could be complicated. And the most complicated of those mostly would be estate transfers, because you're dealing with people that are really struggling. They've dealt with the loss of a loved one, and so the need for care is greater than a normal renewal transaction. So I had spent a fair bit of time with this woman, who's a young lady whose husband had passed away recently, unexpectedly, and was working with her, to get through all the complicated pieces of getting through the transaction. And nearing the end, I went to get her my business card, and I was at a stage where I had a young daughter, and she would walk down to the office after school every day and spend time at my desk in order to wait for me to go home with her at the end of the day. So she would sit at my desk and hang out and doodle and do whatever she wanted to do. She was 5 or 6 at the time. And so when I turned and went to grab my business card, I handed it to the lady at the counter. I said, you can call me anytime, day or night, if there's anything else that you need to help you through this tough time. So I handed it to her, and I was finishing up the papers, and she slid the business card back to me, and she said, I don't think this is meant for me. And I said, what do you mean? And she flipped it over, and on the back of the card in bright red crayon was the words, "I love you," which my daughter had written to me as a gift while she was waiting at my desk. So I quickly slid it back over to her, and I said, "No, that's for you."
That's cool. That's a very good story.
Couldn't have made that up. Our company is a long-term... No, let's start over. My company has been in business for over 100 years. And through that time, a lot of change has happened, but it's been fairly slow-paced. And moving up into where we are now, it's moving a lot quicker, and we realized that we had to change our business to modernize with the changing consumer and the pace of change. We did that holding on to the foundation of what our business was founded on: relationships, community involvement, great service, and applied that to the change that we needed to make, which was taking all of the good from the past and layering in the needs of the future. The association is no different. It's been around a long time. It's had a lot of great accomplishments, a lot of victories over the years, and it will change over time as well as the needs of its members change, just as the needs of our clients have changed over the years.
Awesome.
Wow.
I don't know, it's all sorts of random crap.
There we go.
If
Hi.
I move around,
Hi.
you can't look at me.
So who do we have here?
Start again. I just got rid of my mint.
Okay.
Delete that.
Absolutely.
Hi. Well, I'm Renata Mueller. I'm past president of the Insurance Broker Association, I believe from the year 2000.
Excellent. So where are you from?
Well, originally I was born in Munich, Germany, grew up in British Columbia, and so I'm a true bred Canadian as an immigrant.
What community are you from? And where you had your brokerage?
Oh, I'm sorry. The community was in Vancouver, was in South Granville area of Vancouver.
Excellent. Excellent. So how long have you actually been in the business?
I don't want to date myself, but it's a good 30 years plus.
Oh, excellent. So you've seen thank you, girls. Thank you. You've seen a lot of changes.
I've seen a lot of change in the industry.
And what,
Can we just ask that again while we get
Sorry.
Sorry.
The door.
Yeah, just let everybody settle down here. We're running a little.
You've seen a lot of changes in the industry. What kind of struck you in terms of the overall from the beginning to the end till now that you've seen?
Well, I think that, I have been out of owning a brokerage since 2000, but I still am very connected to the property casualty business. And I just feel now everything with technology is so fast. Our customer base is so different. I think that's one of the big changes. Before, we were hand-holding our clients much more. They'd come into the office. They didn't do anything we didn't even have the internet then, didn't have cell phones either. So we basically did a lot of consulting and advising clients on the one-to-one, face-to-face.
What were those first days like when you first entered?
Well, for me, it was quite unusual because my background, I'm a chartered accountant, CPA, CA, and I bought the business from my parents. So I came from public practice from an international CA firm into owning an insurance brokerage when I bought it from them. So for me, it was very different from my business environment. Had to get an insurance license as quickly as I could so I could deal with clients. And I found that it wasn't that different from handling my accounting clients versus handling and servicing insurance clients. So there was a nice transition there because I like dealing with people, and the insurance business is like that.
So you bought the insurance agency from your parents?
I did.
So you grew up with insurance. Tell me about
I grew up with it to the extent that I did the financial statements for my parents' brokerage. I didn't really grow up in it or work in it in any capacity. I just simply looked after the financial statements and filing tax returns for them. But I was very connected to it, and I saw the involvement that my parents had working in it and the relationship they had with clients and the customers.
But seeing that must have had an impact with you deciding to move forward in the industry.
Very much so, very much so. First of all, it was a successful business. Being a CA, I discovered that the business was recession-proof. So no matter how the economy went up and down, the actual insurance brokerage business was really quite recession-proof. So there was another reason for me to buy and invest in it. I liked the people contact. I liked the opportunity to work with my commercial clients. I did specialize in commercial insurance because of my background, and ended up with some very, very interesting commercial clients in the brokerage.
I find this is happening a lot within the brokers, that their families, and they buy from their parents who are in the business. Now they are, it's not a coincidence.
No, it's quite common actually, and I see it. I do merger and acquisitions now in the insurance sector, and I see quite often where I've got contacts coming to me where they're asking for advice, but they're ready to basically sell the business to their children rather than into the marketplace. And there's a reason for it. It's because the children, which are adults now, have grown up in the business. They work in the business. They understand the business. And I think there's a little bit of this feeling, I'd rather have my children own it than a stranger and sell it into the marketplace. So it's a very positive thing for some owners. For others, it doesn't work.
Slow down a little.
Yeah, I think
We're not just
slow down.
slow down.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's great, sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds
Just a
like
little-
we
Okay.
need to slow down a bit. What do you think are some of the qualities that you possess that came out throughout those years, Dave, being a broker?
Well, I'd like to think it's the relationship and the people skills dealing with the customers, our clients. That was probably my biggest strength, that I enjoyed looking after my clients and going out to see them, and getting to know more about their businesses, insuring them, protecting them through the insurance programs that we put together. That was really, I think, the skill set I brought that was most interesting. But also, you're always learning in this business. It never stops. So you think, well, you know it all, but you really don't. There's a new insurance company that's in the marketplace. They provide new products. That's all a learning curve. I think that's very good for somebody in this business. It's never a dull moment.
Excellent. Don't forget to slow down a bit.
Okay.
That's all right. You're still okay, but you're just on the edge of being a little fast.
Okay.
Question for you. In terms of you've now seen it change, and you've seen the technology, and there's all kinds of elements of the industry have changed. But there must be some elements that exist and have existed from day one, whether it's 100 years ago. Can you reflect on that for me?
Well, I think the element that exists is obviously the expertise that the insurance brokers bring to their clients. That's a commonality that I think will never go away, because even though you can buy the product and go on the internet and download apps and do your own thing as a customer looking to buy insurance, the expertise just isn't there. And that's what the broker brings to their clients, and that will never change.
So now reflecting to the future, what do you see in the future for IDC, the association and the brokers?
Well, I see that the younger people, I mean, you have the millennials, and they're a completely different breed. I mean, there's several generations back from where I'm at, and they have a different buying decision. They have everything they do is on an app. They don't talk to people. You need something, they look up app. They talk to Siri. They do this, they do that. I think that that's a huge change on how the brokers have to try and relate to this new marketplace that's out there. And that's not easy.
Excellent. Well said.
Could I get a statement from you, Renata, looking to Alan? One thing I love about this business, pause, is never a dull moment. You know, with a smile or something.
I said that earlier, didn't I?
know, but I
Okay.
just want that statement.
Yes.
Yes, I know.
So there's one thing you wanted to say. What is it?
Well, basically, there's never a dull moment in the insurance sector. I just love the sector. I've been in so many years. There's never a dull moment.
Sure.
That's good.
It's okay?
No,
Yeah,
that's
why
super.
not?
That's super. Now, let's talk a bit about your presidency. When you entered your presidency, were you intrepid? Were you apprehensive? How did you feel about being president in such an important role?
Well, I didn't really give it any thought, because I didn't think, first of all, I'm as a chartered accountant, I never looked at myself being a female accountant or a male accountant. I'm just an accountant, okay? And I felt the same way in the insurance sector. I'm an insurance broker, I own an insurance brokerage, and I have the opportunity to serve the members by joining the executive and ultimately becoming a president. So to me, it was just a role of giving back to the Insurance Brokers Association and moving forward to become a president.
What sort of qualities did you bring to it?
Well, I think every president that's come in, or shall we say the executive that moves forward to become a president, I think every one of them brings a quality of leadership. and however you define leadership, I think everyone has brought forward their best interest for the association, for the members, and for clients. And that's a leadership role.
Now, when you entered it, in hindsight, and you've gotten out and done your presidency, did you learn anything as being the president?
Yes, I learned that we have a diversity amongst the board members, and it's good to listen because they come from different regions in British Columbia, and so they have different client servicing needs. They have different ways of handling their brokerage. Some of them have smaller brokerages, some come from very large brokerages. So there's a diversity that is brought by all the different directors that come to the board, and it was very good to learn from each one of them.
I think it's important of sharing their knowledge, they're not competition, that kind of stuff.
Well, I can relate to my brokerage. I had a brokerage on South Granville Street, and there was another brokerage 2 blocks away. And, you know, we would never take each other's clients from each other. If somebody came in with an insurance policy from ABC Brokerage down the street, I would just send them back there and just say, go speak with them and see if they can't help you for what the situation is, whether it's pricing or whether it's claims handling. And we would never, ever take friendly brokers. We considered each other friendly competitors. We would never take a policy away from them.
And
well, I was the first female president. I believe they called me a pioneer. I think it was after 52 years. I don't think I was that old, but they still called me a pioneer when they wrote an article in the Vancouver Sun about the first female president. I was surprised, actually, that we didn't have female presidents previously, prior to me becoming a president, because I believe the statistics are approximately, and don't quote me on this, 80% of the workforce is women in the insurance sector, property casualty sector. So why would we not have more women coming into the folds of presidency or on the executive? And I'm really happy to see that as of now, as of 2017, we actually have 3 past presidents that are female. But I'm hoping we see more.
so there seems to be, but the general term or the general trend is that there are more and more people entering, more and more women.
Well, there've always been, it's predominantly been a female-driven insurance industry. So I don't know if the statistics are any greater now than they were before, but it's always been predominantly female. And it's a huge commitment to also join the executive, join the board. If you have family and business responsibilities, you have to basically couple those together. So it's not that easy just to take that extra time in addition to running your business or running your home life. Therefore, it might be a bit of a deterrent for women to be able to roll up sleeves and do everything.
Great. Yeah,
So now we've seen all this where we are.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to look into the future and tell me what's going to happen.
I always say I'm not a soothsayer. People ask me, what's going to be the price of an insurance brokerage 10 years from now? I don't know. I think that the future of the insurance brokerage is good. I feel it's good because it's a recession-proof business, and because it's recession-proof, it will continue to grow. However, we do have the issues with direct writers. They have deep pockets. They can do a lot of marketing, a lot of advertising. You see it on TV all the time. They're internet savvy. So I think that is something. The insurance brokers are going to have to spend more money on their technology to keep up with what they're trying to achieve, which is continued growth.
Is it not fair to say that over the 100 years you've gone through so many different hurdles that therefore you are very optimistic that you're going to be able to meet all the challenges of the future as long as you accept them, right?
Well, in the 100-year history, I think the insurance brokers have been so resilient in survival that I see them continuing to be able to survive in the future. I just do not see a negative situation there.
great.
Got a future?
Is that good?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
Alan Davidson, did you know him?
I knew him so well. He was a gentleman of gentlemen. I was on the board of Cuma's group of companies with Alan, and the first time I met him was when I arrived with 3 suitcases on the conveyor belt in Hamilton, and he generously lifted all 3 of them off and said, "What are you doing with 3 suitcases?" Ran out to a board meeting. And that's my first encounter with Alan and Doris, and I am so sad that they passed.
So, Alan Davidson, tell me that story.
Alan Davidson, well, first time I met Alan Davidson.
Start again. Can you start again? You were on top of that.
What's that?
Alan Davidson.
Sorry.
Say Alan Davidson, his name.
Alan Davidson, the first time I met Alan Davidson, he and I were on the board of the Cumis group of companies. I'm flying to Hamilton, and I arrived for the board meeting on the same flight, and I had 3 suitcases, and Alan Davidson, being the gentleman of gentlemen, he turned around and said, Renata, I will help you with your suitcases, and gladly lifted them off the conveyor belt, and then turned around and said, and what are you doing bringing 3 suitcases to a board meeting? So that's the first time I met Alan and his wife Doris, and I just adored that couple, and I'm so sad that they won't be here with us on our 100th anniversary.
What sort of qualities and character do you thought what was behind Alan Davidson?
He was the gentleman of gentlemen, okay? He was very articulate. He was a superb insurance broker, and he became a very dear friend, actually.